Welcome to our latest PT 2.0 video webcast. What we're going to look at today is the updates that have happened in October for Power BI. As some of you may know, Power BI undergoes an update every month and they list out all the changes in a YouTube video and a series of documentation. I'm going to link to that video below so that you can go and watch the whole video. The whole video goes for about 45-50 minutes and runs through some of these changes in a great deal of detail. What I'm trying to do though is keep this to 5 minutes to show the updates that might be important to accountants and financial planners, anyone in finance, and how they can use it in their business. So we've actually got quite a few changes this month, so I'll run through them in a little bit of detail, but if you want more detail, just let me know and we can expand on any of the topics in more detail. So what's changed for October? We now have the ability to do automatic data refreshes. Now, those who are used to Power BI say, well, there is already scheduled refreshes in Power BI. But what this is it's allowing automated data refreshes on direct queries in the desktop version. So what this means is that we can set the Power BI desktop version to go and query data sources on a more regular basis. So let's say for an accounting firm, it's end of month, you've got billing targets and you want to keep a constant look at how invoices are being generated and raised and approved. We can get the new automatic data refreshes to go and check against the database and return the data say every 5 seconds so that we can see how we're going to meet our targets. So this is pretty massive, and this is probably the biggest one in this update, and something that we're going to start implementing internally. It just makes a great deal of sense when we're dealing with our workflows to be able to see that data on a more regular basis without anybody having to do anything. The next, I should just say before I skip on, is that this is will allow us to schedule and refresh data on the Power BI online environment, but it will be limited to what your tenancy can actually do. So in the cases of some of your tenancies, this might be restricted down to what your normal scheduled refresh timelines are. So it's generally where I see people using it, where they want frequent updates, is on the desktop version. There are also some new and big improvements to Q&A. So Q&A allows us to ask natural language questions of the data. So there's now actually Q&A visuals that have been added into the report and make searches easier. To just try and get end users to understand the data. And you can actually now review the questions that people have asked of the data, which I think is actually quite cool and allows you to set up rules for when people ask certain terms, what that term actually means. So we're starting to see that this Q&A area get a lot more useful and robust, and it's certainly something that I think we'll see integrated into more dashboards. In some of my blogs, we have talked about Power Apps before. Now that there is a Power App visual that has been added by default, so you can then once you've updated to the October 2019, it'll just drop in. So it allows better interaction between Power Apps and Power BI. There was also some updates to some new XViz visuals. And there were 3 in total, but the 2 that I think that have been most relevant are the hierarchical variance table. So it allows us to group the data, do like a little bit of a spark line, and bring the data together. It's well worth playing around with that visual. It's in the marketplace. And then the linear gauge. So it allows us to set a gauge of not just where we are along a linear scale, but set target zones. So essentially, if we get to 50%, 70%, 90%, here's how I want to shade so that as the gauge moves along the linear axis, we can see where we're up to and is the result good or bad. Just a quick visual. For those who are a bit more technical, there is a query diagnostics tool that's in public preview, which means that you're going to actually have to set your options to enable the functionality. But it helps to understand how a query is being evaluated and the duration. So as we're querying against the database and doing transformations, it helps to understand what's taking long, what Power BI is actually doing to pull all that data. This does get quite technical in this stage, but I think it's going to be something well worth checking out in greater detail. And also there have been additional enhancements to the data profiling abilities, which shows how the performance of your Power BI queries and visuals and everything else is stacking up. Obviously, as part of all of this, we want it to be as quick as possible so that more people use it. So both of these are great little tools to actually try and enhance usability. And the last one that we'll play around with is a new PDIBX file format. What it allows us to do is streamline the get data process. So anyone who's used Power BI knows that when you try and get the data, you've got to set up all your parameters. This new file format will allow us to simplify some of that process to make it easier for end users to get in there. And then finally, there's been a stack of performance improvements for modeling operations like measures and things like that. So there's always performance improvements in there, and it's great to see that this is a product that is being actively developed and improved all the time. Some other things that have changed that I'm not going to go into any detail is we've got new connectors. So there's an Azure Cost Management connector and a Workplace Analytics connector for Office 365. And there's a new template app on a project web app. So those who don't know, Microsoft releases template apps that will connect to different data sources, which essentially contain a package of reports that you can just connect up to your data and start using. And they normally publicize one every now and then, and this is the latest one. So guys, thanks for your time. They're the updates. As I said before, the link will be in below as to the full video. And if you are really interested in some of that performance tuning type stuff, there's a detailed discussion around it in the video I'll link to below, so it's well worth watching. As always, hit like if you enjoyed it, subscribe to get updates, and we'll keep bringing this kind of thing through. And if you enjoy or you want to see something in particular, please comment below. Thank you very much.